Welcome back, legends. I hope you're all fantastic. Today we have a very rare and strange piece of old rat gear today. This is the Nobels SST-19. It's basically a Rockman XPR clone, and as I understand it, Rockman actually took some legal action against Nobels back in the day over this particular unit. There is a big write-up about the history of this device and what it evolved from, like the original little battery-powered Rockman and then the Rock Box. It's a pretty interesting story, not one I'm going to cover here, but do some Googling and you can read up about that. I guess the joke's kind of on Rockman though, because Nobels went on to come out with the ODR1, which has basically become the Nashville drive that everybody there uses. It's like the sound of modern country guitar overdrive, and they have a bunch of other great products out in pedal format as well, but I didn't even know about this until it came up for sale locally. Big thank you to friend of the channel, Troy Nababan, for pointing this out, and we were both like, what is this? And we played around with it, and it was kind of like, yeah, it's sort of like a Rockman, so let's set it up kind of like a Rockman. I'm plugging my guitar into this. I'm going into Pro Tools DI in stereo. We have a compressor, we have a graphic EQ, we've got stereo chorus, delay, we've got this really interesting kind of drive section which lets you blend between a normal or clean 1 sound and then clean 2 overdrive and distortion. That's pretty unique. And then we've got an entire section here for memories. It has MIDI. You can connect 2 external loops on this. So you can actually do 4-cable method with this, which is pretty interesting. And then there's a master control over here, and you can protect your memories, and there's a bunch of foot switching options as well. It's pretty fully featured. It's really, really impressive. It's you know, not too much to complain about for 100 Australian dollars. So let's just get started. I'll turn the EQ off. I think the compressor is meant to be off, but the light's on. I don't know what that does. And this is like the most plastic DI guitar sound you're gonna hear today. So yeah, about as good as you would expect there. I'm gonna bring the compressor up to get rid of some of that plasticiness, or maybe to add more plasticiness. All right, there's the compressor. I'm gonna bring the EQ in and actually do some EQing here. I wouldn't mind a bit of kind of extra low end, and that high end is pretty harsh, and I'll also pull out a bunch of like 1K. All right, this is sounding super 80s so far, and we haven't even added the chorus. So let's add the chorus. I'll keep the rate low, and I'll bring the intensity up, kind of pops when it comes on, but it does have a really nice stereo spread. This is very Rockman-y. Pretty interesting there. Let's add the delay to the circuit. I got the time all the way up, bring the intensity in, which actually turns it on, and I'll go low with the repeats. There's not a whole lot of delay time on here. You basically just get slapback at the maximum delay time. That's a pretty lovely sticky analog chorus on there as well. So yeah, the delay section, not super useful for me. I really like the chorus on this. Everything else sounds about as good as you would expect, but we haven't even played around with the kind of interesting distortion slider. So what we can do is, I'm just gonna leave the chorus on, I'll leave the compressor on. We can blend in some of this distortion, and I'll leave the EQ on for now. Actually, I'm gonna turn it off just so we can hear the distortion, overdrive, and clean 2. I'll go over to the bridge pickup. Okay, yeah, that sounds, that sounds, let's hear the overdrive. Wow, I'm glad we have things like the Axe effects and plugins nowadays, because if this was your only option for direct sound, yeah, you get that. But all is not lost. I don't totally hate that yet, because I can bring in the graphic EQ. Let's do this. Let's give it a kind of boogie V-shape thing. I think the EQ actually comes after the distortion here. Let's make sure we don't rip our face off with high end. Okay, it's not the worst thing I've ever heard in my life, but I can't help but feel that this would be so much better like running it into an amp. So I'm gonna play around with just the EQ and the drive into my Boogie Studio Pre. All right, this is gonna get pretty noisy, but what I've found is there's no real like transparent mode on this to kind of turn everything off at the same time. So I'm gonna set it on clean 2 on the B option on the drive. I'm gonna bring the master up a bit. I'll let you hear that, and then I'm gonna kick in the graphic with the settings you can see here, and it kind of gets you like a Schultzy Boston thing. So yeah, beware the noise. And I got caught noodling there, but you get the idea anyway. It does that super hyped up pre-mid EQ thing. Putting the chorus on there can actually get super wobbly and like uni-vibe-ish, and having the different drive options on there is kind of nice and kind of overkill as well. I think I just like the sound of the Boogie Studio preamp straight up. Putting this in front of it does make it sound super 80s, but not in the kind of glorious super 80s way I like. It does get pretty obnoxious sounding. But if you're chasing that kind of Schultz Rockman style thing, this is a way cheaper way to get it than a Rockman XPR, which are far more expensive used, I think, because no one basically knows about these old Nobels units. It is really, really well built, I will give it that, and the graphic EQ and the chorus alone are pretty fun. I really like those as tone shaping options. If that's all it did, I would probably actually like it more, because there's a bunch of functions I just don't use on here, or like you've seen that compressor light come on and off randomly. So maybe this unit isn't functioning 100% perfectly, but it is what it is. You know, it's very much of the times. And what I'm going to do to ride this out is I'm going to repatch all of this, and I will go back to that DI clean sound with the kind of V-shape EQ, heaps of compression, the chorus, and then I'll add some pitch detune from my Eventide H3500. I will say thank you all so much for watching the video. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments. If you've got one of these, I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, have a great day, stay safe, and be good to one another.